Getting to high places can be difficult in many work environments. Sometimes a ladder is all you need, but in other situations, equipment like a scissor lift is the best solution. Scissor lifts are common on construction sites, both inside and outdoors. They are often found in warehouses and other large buildings as well. They are easy to identify. Just look for the crisscrossed X-shaped supports. When you're raising or lowering the lift's work platform, these X's pivot and slide against each other like the blades of scissors. That's how the equipment got its name. This program will look at how scissor lifts work, discuss the hazards that are associated with them, and give you the information you need to stay safe, whether you're using a scissor lift or working near one. When it comes to workplace safety, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, is the federal agency that writes the regulations and enforces compliance in the U.S. But if you use a scissor lift, there is another group that you should be familiar with. It's the American National Standards Institute, also known as ANSI. Unlike OSHA, ANSI is not a government agency. It's an association that establishes safe work practices for different industries, called American National Standards. In 2020, ANSI made some revisions to their standard for mobile work platforms, beginning with how they refer to the equipment, changing from aerial work platforms, or AWPs, to mobile elevating work platforms, MUPs. But there were a number of more significant changes as well, affecting the equipment's design standards, job site safety procedures, and training requirements. First, ANSI reorganized how they look at MUPs, dividing them into two groups. Scissor lifts fall into Group A, equipment that moves vertically but only within its tipping lines, the wheels or outriggers. The standard's job site safety requirements focus on three things, all of which apply to scissor lifts. Creating a safe use program for scissor lifts wherever they are used. Doing a risk assessment for each job a scissor lift is used on. And structuring a rescue plan for each type of scissor lift that is used on a job site. The standard's training requirement now includes giving occupants as well as operators training about the safe use and rescue operations of a scissor lift that they are using. The changes to the ANSI design standards for scissor lifts were significant as well. First, all new scissor lifts must have a gated entrance to their platform. Chains are no longer allowed to be used as entrance guards. Also, the minimum height for platform railings was increased from 39 to 43.5 inches. Next, ANSI addressed where scissor lifts are used. New scissor lifts that are used outdoors on rough terrain must have foam-filled or solid tires. Additionally, manufacturers can produce scissor lifts that are to only be used indoors and are certified as such. And some models of the equipment have had their lift and load speeds reduced. Lastly, all new scissor lifts are required to have alarms and safety devices, such as a safety load limit alarm, as well as a sensor that will stop the lift if the limit is exceeded, and a wind speed sensor on any scissor lift that is designed to be used outdoors that will direct operators to reduce their load capacity in windy conditions. While all of these design standards will be incorporated into newly manufactured lifts, older models do not need to be retrofitted to these standards. In addition to the changes in a scissor lift's design criteria, the ANSI standard also requires companies that use scissor lifts to create a safe use program for all of their lift equipment. This program must have three major components: performing a risk assessment for all work sites where scissor lifts will be used and the tasks that they will perform there, creating a rescue plan in case workers encounter problems when using a lift, and training for both operators and occupants of scissor lifts. Conducting a risk assessment is pretty straightforward. Employers must ensure that all job sites are inspected, potential hazards are identified, Control measures and safe work procedures are developed to address the hazards, and the resulting safety plan is communicated to all employees who could be affected by the use of scissor lifts on the job site. This includes not only the site supervisors, lift operators, and the occupants who perform tasks while they are raised on a scissor lift's platform, but also other workers who may not be directly involved with the lift equipment but could still be affected by its presence. Risk assessment also plays an important role in the second ANSI Safe Use Program requirement, rescue planning. How scissor lifts operate and the locations where they are used can create unique challenges if the workers on a lift get into trouble and need to be rescued. Whether they have fallen from a platform and are hanging from their lifeline in midair, the platform has become entangled, leaving them stranded off the ground, or the lift has failed in some way. Plans should be made ahead of time regarding how to assist the workers quickly and safely. What's more, ANSI requires that all rescue plans be written down and included in a company's employee training manual. The third leg of a safe use program is employee training. Before employees can be authorized to operate a scissor lift or work on a lift's platform, their employer must first verify that they are both physically and mentally capable of doing so. There are several types of scissor lifts, each with its own characteristics and capabilities. They can be powered by electricity, diesel fuel, propane, or gasoline, and can raise a work platform up to 60 feet or more off the ground. Some scissor lifts are intended for use indoors on smooth floors, such as in warehouses. Other lifts are meant to be used outdoors on rough terrain. But in order to operate a scissor lift, you must be trained on the specific lift you'll be using. This is the third leg of the ANSI MUPE Standards Safe Use Program. Your training will discuss the hazards that can be associated with scissor lifts, the safe work practices you should follow to reduce or eliminate those hazards, how to recognize and avoid unsafe conditions in the areas where you'll be using a scissor lift, how to perform a safety inspection on a lift, and how to handle any emergencies that occur when they are in use. You'll be required to undergo retraining if hazards are discovered in your workplace that affect how scissor lifts should be operated, or you need to use a type of lift that you haven't been trained on. Retraining will also be required for anyone who has an accident while operating a scissor lift or is seen operating a lift improperly or unsafely. In many cases, the operator of a scissor lift will also be the only person on the platform, called an occupant. But when other employees will be occupants, ANSI requires an operator to make sure that they also have a basic knowledge of the safe work practices that are required before beginning to work on the lift. Occupants not only need to understand how their activity on the platform can affect the stability of the equipment, they should also have a general knowledge of the purpose and function of the scissor lift's controls, as well as the lowering and shutdown procedures. The operator must also inform occupants about the hazards that are associated with the worksite and the tasks that they will be performing, as well as how to avoid the hazards. And at least one platform occupant besides the operator should be trained to use the scissor lift's controls in an emergency, in case the operator is unable to. However, occupants are not authorized to operate the controls of a scissor lift in other than an emergency situation. Another thing that both operators and occupants need to be trained on is the different types of fall protection that can be used to avoid or mitigate any potential fall hazards. They need to know that guardrails should always be in the proper position and undamaged, that all access gates should be closed and latched, and that any other openings must be guarded before the platform is raised. In some cases, operators and occupants will need to wear personal fall restraint or fall arrest devices and will need to be trained on its use as well. When you're working with or around a scissor lift, it's important to understand the hazards that are associated with the equipment so you can avoid them. They include falls and falling objects, equipment tip-overs, crushing injuries, and electrocution. One of the most significant hazards for people working on a scissor lift is the chance of falling off the platform. That's why the edges of lift platforms should be guarded by railings. So you need to make sure the lift you're working on is equipped with railings and that they are secure before the platform is raised. Many companies also require their employees to wear personal fall protection when they're working on a scissor lift. But even with railings and toe boards, tools and materials can still fall off and create a serious hazard for people working on the ground below. To warn coworkers about this potential hazard and keep them a safe distance from the lift, safety cones or warning tape should be used around the area where the lift is working. Another serious lift-related hazard is a tip-over, which can affect both people on the lift and people on the ground. Many tip-overs occur when a work platform is overloaded. To avoid exceeding a scissor lift's weight limit, calculate the total weight that the platform will be carrying before you raise it. This should include the people who will be on the lift as well as the tools and materials they will be using. Then compare this figure with the lift's maximum carrying capacity. The total should always be smaller than what the lift is rated for. Tip-overs can also result from hazardous conditions that can exist on a work site. So it's important to be able to recognize potential problems in order to avoid them. On an outdoor work site, check the ground for slopes, holes, ditches, and other irregularities that could make a lift unstable. Look for overhead hazards, such as trees, light poles, and low-hanging cables as well. Running into objects like these can damage a scissor lift, even cause it to tip over. Even worse, workers on the lift platform could be crushed against them. Overhead hazards can exist on indoor work sites as well. Check for low ceilings, beams, rafters, HVAC ducts, and piping. Use caution when working near them. Indoors or out, electricity is another serious hazard that can be encountered when you're operating a scissor lift. You should always identify any electrical equipment, power lines, or cable raceways in the area before using a lift. The best course is to have them de-energized if possible. Otherwise, you should keep the lift, yourself, and any tools that you are carrying a safe distance away from the wires. For lines carrying 50,000 volts, the minimum safe distance is 10 feet. When you're going to be using a scissor lift outside, be sure to keep your eye on the weather as well. High winds can blow the equipment over. Rain, snow, and ice can make the platform slippery. And lightning can electrocute you just as effectively as a power line can. So be sure to look at a forecast before starting outdoor work with a lift. There are two inspections that must be performed before you use a scissor lift: an equipment inspection and a worksite inspection. To make sure that your lift is in good condition, you should inspect it at the start of every shift. This will ensure that nothing has happened to the equipment while you've been away and that the lift is still operating correctly. You'll find a list of things to be inspected in the operator's manual of the lift you're using. This manual has been compiled by the equipment's manufacturer and should be followed closely. But there are a number of things that should be looked at on every lift. Always check that fluids are at the appropriate levels, wheels and tires are in good condition and properly inflated, the battery and charger are in good working order, and all of the controls function properly. Be sure to inspect all of the lift's other components as well, particularly the power system, guardrails, and other safety devices. Never use a lift that has any defects, A lift that fails inspection must be removed from service until a qualified person has made repairs. It's also important to inspect the work site where the lift will be used. You should survey the site thoroughly, make note of any hazards that exist there, and take action to reduce or eliminate them before operating the lift. If you're working inside, look for overhead hazards and material on the floor that could obstruct or destabilize a lift. If you're outside, watch out for hazardous surface conditions as well as power lines and other hazards up high that you'll need to avoid. Remember, OSHA classifies scissor lifts as movable scaffolds, so the federal standards that apply to lifts can be found in the agency's scaffolding regulations. Once you've assured yourself that both the lift and the work site are safe, it's time to set your scissor lift up for use. Consult the operator's manual for instructions and tips on positioning the lift. Then make sure it's on firm ground. If the lift has outriggers or other stabilizers, set them on a level, solid surface. If you're outdoors, you may need to lay down some pads or move some earth to get a proper base. Be sure to set up work zone warnings, using signs, tape, or safety cones to let others know that you are working in the area and that they should keep a safe distance. Finally, inspect any protective equipment you'll be using, including hard hats, gloves, safety shoes, and fall protection systems. Never use PPE or fall protection that is damaged or defective. Once you have identified any potential hazards and have set up your scissor lift properly, you can get to work. First, you will need to climb onto the platform and secure the gate or guardrails. If you're using a fall protection system, make sure it's attached to an appropriate point on the lift. Attaching it to an adjacent structure could result in you being pulled off the platform if the lift should move. Make sure that the load you're putting on the lift, including tools, equipment, and other workers, doesn't exceed the rated weight capacity of the lift. You can find the capacity marked on the lift's information plate or by looking it up in the operator's manual. Arrange everything so that it is evenly spaced and properly balanced. Test the controls to make sure the lift operates smoothly and maneuvers properly. Then slowly raise yourself to the desired height, keeping both feet on the platform at all times. Never lean, sit, or climb on the guardrails. Many scissor lifts have extendable platforms to help you get closer to your work. These can slide out to increase the lift's reach. But remember, you should never try to use ladders, planks, stools, or other devices to extend your reach or to bridge gaps between the lift and the area where you need to work. These can be very unstable and often lead to a fall. Once you complete your work, there are a number of steps you need to take to lower a scissor lift safely. First, make sure the area below the lift is clear of tools, materials, and people, so the platform won't hit anything on the way down. You may want to enlist the aid of a spotter on the ground to help with this. If you choose to use a spotter, be sure to work out the verbal instructions or hand signals that you'll be using to communicate with them ahead of time. Bring the lift down slowly and carefully until it is fully lowered. Disconnect your personal fall protection system from its anchor point. Then exit the platform, keeping 2 hands and 1 foot or 1 hand and 2 feet in contact with the lift at all times. Never jump from the platform. If outriggers or stabilizers were deployed, stow them away properly. Lastly, remove any warning signs, tape, and/or cones from the work area. Even if you don't operate a scissor lift, having one working nearby can expose you to a number of hazards. These can include tip-overs, falling objects, even electrocution. So be aware of any lift equipment that's working in your area. Look for safety cones or warning tape that lift operators have set up to cordon off work areas and stay away whenever possible. If you have to go into the area, always wear appropriate personal protective equipment, including a hard hat and safety shoes with steel toes. Be sure to stay clear of scissor lifts when they are raising or lowering their platforms. You also need to use caution when lifts are entering or exiting your work area. A lift on the move will normally give pedestrians the right of way, but you shouldn't assume that the operator can see you. Most lifts can be driven from controls that are located on the work platform. But the higher up the driver is, the more difficulty they have seeing what's going on at ground level. So take care to stay out of their blind spots. Scissor lifts can help you reach places that you might not be able to get to otherwise, but they can be dangerous if you don't know how to use or work around them safely. Let's review. The current ANSI Mobile Elevating Work Platform Standard contains revisions that affect a scissor lift's design, job site safety procedures, and training requirements. Companies that use scissor lifts must create a safe use program for all of their lift equipment. Make sure that you've been trained on any scissor lifts that you will be using in your workplace. Know the hazards that are associated with scissor lifts and how to avoid them. Always inspect a scissor lift for damage or unsafe conditions before you use it, and never use a damaged lift. Know how to properly set up and operate your lift, as well as how to break it down and return it to its storage area. If you're working on the ground, be aware of any scissor lifts that are operating in the area and use caution around them. When you need to do work that's up in the air, scissor lifts can take you there. And with the proper training and safety precautions, you can avoid the hazards that are associated with them and go home safe at the end of every day.